And our next speaker is someone who's awesome, who's a good friend of ours. It's Amy Roberton. I've known Amy for the start of my career. So back in 2002, 2003, Amy, we met at Okini. And yeah, so yeah, known her a very long time. She still looks the same. Can you believe it? I've aged and gone grey. She looks pretty much identical. Amy,
hello.
yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you. I hope you're going to be okay. I think you were going to pre-record this, but you're going to do it live. So great. It's going to be live.
Yeah, I tried to, I was going to pre-record it, but decided to run live instead. I'm
always better.
I'm giving
Always
it a
better.
go. Good?
Yes, it's working fine. So I'm going to leave you to it. Lots of luck and see you in about 20 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Mawson. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Roberton, and I'm a design and production consultant specializing in denim. I've worked for over 15 years in the fashion industry, working for both high-end market and the high street. My passion and what has really kept my interest in the denim industry sustained for the last 5 years has been focusing on improving the way we can make our denim products better, on how we can lower our products' impact, move towards the circular economy, look at ways to close the loop or extend a product's life cycle, on exploring how to reduce our water consumption and harmful chemicals, and thinking about the carbon footprint of each garment I help to make. If any of these terms are new to you, don't worry. It took all of us working today years to learn how important these terms would become and how the future of our industry could come to depend on them. It has been estimated that up to 80% of a garment's impact is determined at the design stage. That is how invaluable the decisions you make as a designer are to deciding how harmful that product will be and will continue to be after its useful life to the planet and the people who made it. My talk today is focusing on recycling denim, specifically recycled cotton, but as a side, I'm a massive fan of all recycled fibers. And I'm talking about how important this is in the circular economy. When designing with the circular economy in mind, we talk about 3 key principles. Number 1, designing out waste and pollution. 2, keeping products and materials in use. And 3, regenerating natural systems. One of the quickest ways I learned to reduce the impact a product I wanted to design has was to consider the materials I was using to make that product. And I work mainly in the denim industry, so pretty much everything I make has cotton in it. I've long been told of its many brilliant properties: easy to care and wash, lightweight, soft hand fill, breathable, good durability, high absorbency, biodegradable and recyclable. But for years, not many people talked about the issues with cotton, the huge amounts of water needed to grow it. More than half of cotton production, 57%, takes place in areas under higher or extreme water stress, according to data compiled by the World Resources Institute. I won't quote how many gallons of water is needed here to make a pair of jeans. I know Mawson discussed it earlier, or a t-shirt. It is hotly debated. But what everyone does agree on is that cotton is a more thirsty crop than most. We didn't talk about, when I was learning in the beginning of my business, we didn't talk about the inappropriate and excessive use of pesticides and fertilizers used to grow cotton. Cotton growing currently accounts for 2.5% of the world's arable land, but it uses around 6% of the world's pesticides and between 16 and 24% of all insecticides worldwide, as well as 7% of all herbicides and 4% of all nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizers. These figures were reported by the Global Fashion Agenda and shows cotton uses more chemicals than most other crops. Other issues with cotton include the low and unsustainable incomes of smallholder farmers, issues around forced and child labor. The links to slavery are well documented, but it still exists globally today, and the problems with soil depletion. So, what are the alternatives? We have Better Cotton Initiative, or BCI, organic certified cotton, fair trade cotton, cotton made in Africa, or CMIA, and real cotton. Whilst all of these cotton initiatives help to make cotton cultivation less impactful, they're still fairly water and land intensive when compared to my favourite alternative, recycled cotton. Remember those first two principles of circular design, designing out waste and pollution and keeping products and materials in use? Well, recycled cotton is naturally circular. Using recycled cotton instead of conventional cotton leads to significant savings of natural resources and reduces pollution from agriculture. Recycled cotton gives us huge savings in water use. I have been quoted that recycled cotton saves up to 100% of the water used as compared to conventional cotton and up to 98% of the energy. Recycling 1 ton of cotton can save up to 765 cubic meters of water, or put another way, if we use 20% recycled cotton fiber instead of conventional cotton in a fabric blend, we can save up to 8 bathtubs full of water. Recycled cotton extends the lifespan of already existing fibers, keeping them in use for longer. And it also keeps clothes from being burnt or being sent to landfills, often in other countries. When we talk about recycled cotton, there are 2 types. We talk about post-consumer recycled cotton and pre-consumer recycled cotton. Post-consumer recycled cotton takes our waste, our discarded clothes, and saves them from being burnt or being sent to landfills. Pictured are bales of discarded denim items ready to be sorted at a recycling facility. Right now, less than 1% of our worn and discarded clothing gets recycled into new fashion. An estimated 73% of what we cast off is landfilled, often in developing countries, where it can add to landfill, which is leaking toxic waste into rivers and seas. Pre-consumer recycled cotton takes industrial waste from spinning and weaving, from offcuts from the cutting floor and mill dead stocks. Pictured on the right, you can see a big Hoover-like pipe collecting all the loose yarns flying around a spinning facility. If we're being completely honest though, mills have long been taking this fibre waste and putting it back into their system. It's just now they can package it as a sustainable fibre and often charge for it. By making clothes with pre or post recycled cotton, or a combination of both, we can reduce carbon dioxide emissions, chemicals, water and energy used when compared to conventional cotton. Today, the largest volume of recycled cotton is produced through pre-consumer waste. This is because post-consumer waste is more difficult to sort through due to various colour shades and fabric blends, and is generally a more labour-intensive process. The majority of post-consumer recycled cotton is currently done through mechanical recycling. Pictured on the left is a La Roche mechanical shredder giving us post-consumer recycled fibre. It is a beast of a machine. I was very lucky I got to visit a recycling plant a few years ago that is part of AFM Denim Mills in Karachi, Pakistan. First, the huge bales of discarded clothes are sorted by colour and composition. Anything not suitable will be shredded later, downcycled into things like insulation. After sorting by hand, the garments are cut. We can't recycle the seams or the hardware, so the big length of denim in the legs is cut out, as shown on the left. Next, the fabric pieces are run through the machine, passing several stages, shredding down into raw fibre. The raw fibre is then taken in bales to spinning facilities, where it is then spun back into yarns for reuse in new products. So the savings in water and chemicals used is clear when compared to conventional cotton. However, it does also have its drawbacks. The quality of recycled fibre will never have the quality values equal to the original fibre. Specifically, fibre length and length uniformity will be impacted, which will limit the end-use application and means that it has to be blended with other fibres like conventional virgin cotton. The amount depends on preference, but for instance, most mills will only use 5% recycled cotton in ecrus due to colour contamination. Most often, we'll find 20% recycled blended or as much as 40%. Despite the quality decreasing each time, material resources are repossessed, Mechanical recycling remains an important and effective way to design out use and keep materials in use for longer. An issue we are often faced with as an industry when looking at more responsible practices is scalability. Being able to do the better practices at a large enough scale so that it is as impactful and not too expensive. Mechanical recycling is already working at a larger scale, and once the investment has been made in the technology, it is relatively low cost to run. Chemical recycling, as the name indicates, entails materials going through a chemical process to produce new filaments that will be transformed into new yarns. This method is preferable because you don't get the degradation like you do in mechanical recycling. But this method can be found in the textile industry, but not at a wide enough industrial scale just yet. The drawback to chemical recycling is the use of chemicals, so ideally we keep them in a closed loop system, reusing them over and over again. If future investment in technology and resources allowed for it, chemical recycling could expand across the fashion industry and offer a more efficient way to recycle fibers, but we are some years away from this just yet. I hope I have demonstrated that by choosing recycled cotton, you can make a great start in designing more circular-minded. These are some of the products I have helped make in the last few months that all contain recycled cotton. I was never taught to think about what happens to the clothes I have made after they've been used and how I could design them to be less impactful on our precious planet and how we can learn to recycle them easier. I hope this talk, if anything, has inspired you to think about all materials you will choose to use in your future products. It starts with you. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, what an amazing presentation, and like congratulations to you to summing it all up and explaining it so well to our students. No questions yet, but I'm sure they're gonna like roll in now. So any questions for Amy, guys, about like recycling, please do ask. I have some questions. I know I've been to the same plant that you've been to, and it is quite remarkable seeing those like machines. And
Yes.
What's crazy is that all the sorting they have to do, and obviously the polyester garments, and there's a lot of you can't just put everything in this machine. It has to be sorted by hand. So there is labor cost there, isn't there? So my question to you, Amy, obviously I know we've both been doing a lot of like denim like development, and I've seen 40% as well like, of recycled blends, but now recently we've been seeing more higher content, even 80 to 100%. But whether or not they can like withstand harsh chemicals, maybe these type of fabrics can only be done in a sustainable washing treatment, right? You can't just not a like for like, right?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. And actually, I have used for one of my clients 100% recycled fabric, but it tends to be more pre-consumer blended in there with a bit of post-consumer. And they tend to take, obviously, with the pre-consumer, it's a lot of the mill's own waste. And so we do get the longer fibers mixed with some of the shorter fibers. So that's the thing, is like the fiber length to give strength. We because it's such a sustainable fabric, we would only then choose to make a really sustainable garment. So we wouldn't choose then to aggressively wash it. So we might ozone wash it to give it some fade. We might do a little bit of light laser on it, but I would never then put a really sustainable fabric into a kind of less than highly sustainable wash process. And so yes, it is much less aggressive than conventional.
It's true, isn't it? It's like, what's the point of having this really amazing sustainable fabric and then you bleach the hell out of it? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, if we're kind of, you know, no garment, we're not in a perfect kind of fully circular economy. We're not in a, you know, all of our processes. We're at the beginning of this journey. I think we all understand that. But I think if you are starting with a fabric like that, which, you know, and it could be that it's 100% recycled fibers, or it could be a beautiful blend of hemp, organic cotton, recycled cotton, and lyocell. And, you know, we've seen denims like that as well. And those blends are amazing, but we're of course paying a bit more for them. And for me, it just is no point then to put it through a kind of stone bleach, you know, PP spray, everything thrown at it. It would just kill it for me personally.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Okay, there are some great questions coming through. As a sort of Rowan says, great presentation. Question from Rizzy. What are some of the brands that you would recommend that are using, I guess, recycled content? So which brands are you're fans of that are using?
I mean, there's lots of high street brands that are kind of using recycled content. There's like Weekday, Urban Outfitters, who I consult for. We're using most of our fabrics will have a recycled cotton blend in there as a kind of preference. But you know, most of the high streets do some of their ranges with some recycled cotton in it. Henny's, for example, I know that their standard was 5% for a long time, whereas a lot of other brands have a kind of, we will only accept a minimum of 20%, which is kind of where I am at now. But moving into higher, like I'm definitely starting to ask as a standard, can we have 30 or even 40%? I use a lovely PFD that has 33% recycled cotton in it, and it's great, and it is mostly pre-consumer, because then we know we don't get the color contamination that you can get with post-consumer. Because with post-consumer, if you're just chopping up, you know, indigo garment, the fiber at the end becomes a kind of a little grade off, which is where you can get.
Ends up looking like a kind of like sort of like melange kind of feel. So unless you want,
which can look great, exactly. Sometimes I think that looks great, but it can kind of grey off the end cast at the end.
Okay. Have you found that brands are eager to incorporate like sort of like recycled sort of elements? Of course, many are, right? It's not a trend. It's like many people are actually actively looking at it. I'm finding, I'm sure you're finding as well. Something like
yeah, 100%, and that has definitely sped up since the pandemic. I definitely kind of, you know, we talked about it during the early days of the pandemic, and we were like, we hope this is a really a turning point. And you know, whilst we do have quite a young trend at the moment, going back to some kind of, you know, Y2K, early 2000s, aggressive washes, I think almost everybody I know is seeking kind of better fiber alternatives and is really trying to push that internally. So I think it's really encouraging.
Okay, quick.
I think the consumer is demanding it as well, actually.
Yeah, they are.
I think
they are, and more people are actually aware of it now as well. So it's great that many of these high street companies and high-end companies are actively looking at it. Just a little fun fact: Artistic Fabric Mills, which is the company that you went to, they're sponsoring the project as well. So there is a recycled denim that they're sponsoring the course. So if anyone's interested in using recycled denim, do say you want to use the Artistic like
I'll probably be using it myself for one of my collections. So.
Super. Just a couple more questions. Thank you, Amy. Do you think there should be emphasis on fast fashion to become more circular in the process? Of course, right.
100%. I think people are starting to talk about it more, but I think, I mean, you know, fast fashion can never be circular. It by nature of it just, you know, the bigger picture is that it's always going to face issues. Do I think that they can do things better? 100%. Do I think that they're ever going to, you know, and when they're always driven by kind of profit over purpose, then I think we're going to have issues. So I think that's a really great question. I think it's a really broad question. But, you know, I think they can do better for sure. I think they will never be fully sustainable or circular.
Okay, there's a question from Mohammed. It's really about the like contamination of fibers. Of course, obviously we know having seen it firsthand that there is a human touch to recycling, especially at that sort of level. There's always contamination though. Obviously that's one of these things. There's always a human error, but I know from the mills that are doing it, they're actively making sure that there's no polyester or anything going into these new fibers that they're producing.
I mean, that's what takes the time, and that's what costs a lot of the money, is this sorting. So actually what we can do as designers to help with that is have really clearly labeled garments. And that's why when we talk about designing with the circular economy in mind, part of that is really clear labeling. If your garment is really clearly labeled, like printed on the inside pocketing and on an internal label, that it's a 100% cotton, if that's a recycled blend, organic cotton blend, brilliant. But then we know that very quickly that can be recycled. When the wash care is gone or missing, or the information is really hard to see, then that slows down the process. But
I know
every garment that does get sent to a recycling plant, even if it can't go through the shredder to be turned into a cotton fiber, it does get recycled, but it gets downgraded recycled. So it gets recycled into things like insulation, which is then, that's it, that's its kind of end of life after that.
You mentioned briefly about trims and things like this. So this is a big problem, isn't it? Especially they only use the legs of the jean, and they even cut around the thread sometimes because they don't know if the thread has got polyester in, so they just cut round literally the jean itself. So that's a problem. So I know there's lots of solutions with thread going forward, the cotton thread as well, and new versions of long staple, and also lyocell thread, which can be thrown into the process. Just one more question for bleaching recycled hemp. Would you recommend eco-friendly bleaches, washing chemicals? Do they compare to chemicals? I think lasering is probably the best thing, right? Instead of bleaching.
We recommend, so we would try and do ozone washing and laser on it only.
All right. Cool. Yeah. And I think there's probably one or two more questions, but we might have to leave it there. You did a fantastic job, Amy. You should be very proud of yourself for doing it live. And we thank you so much. That was a really great, clear presentation. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for your time. It was amazing. Thank you. And definitely
thank you.
Missing questions that I haven't asked, and definitely reply if you can.
Okay, I'll stay on for sure. Thanks, Wilson, and thanks for your support.
No, thank you. Brilliant.